Hey, third graders. Today we're going to talk about moving to Michigan. Your learning target is to identify the push and the pull factors that brought people to Michigan. And we talked about the push and the pull before. Push factors are the reasons to leave or getting forced out. And pull factors are reasons to come. Why did they choose to come to Michigan? So I want to read about moving to Michigan. The population of Michigan is made up of people from many different places. They migrated or moved to Michigan for a variety of reasons, and they helped Michigan grow and develop. Especially these first two paragraphs, the French and the British. What would Michigan be without them? The French came first in the late 1600s to work in the fur trade. There were not a lot of French people, but they did begin many early Michigan towns. Later, in the middle of the 1800s, French people came from Canada to work in the lumbering business. Many settled in lumbering towns like Saginaw and Bay City. British people came to Michigan after the French. In the 1830s, many people of British descent moved from the New England area to Michigan. They settled in many areas of the lower peninsula, and most became farmers. In the 1850s, people from the Cornwall area of Britain came to work in the Michigan mines. Now, there were many other countries that had people that came to Michigan. People of African descent have lived in Michigan from the time of the fur trade. Who knew? Between 1840 and 1860, many escaped slaves came through Michigan on their way to Canada. They were looking for freedom, and some stayed in Michigan. During the early 1900s, many African Americans left southern states, hoping to find jobs and a better life in northern states like Michigan. Many settled in cities like Detroit, where they hoped to get jobs in factories. Germans began to come to Michigan around 1830. Many left Germany because crops had failed and there was a shortage of food. There were also political or governmental problems in Germany. They first settled around Ann Arbor and the Saginaw River Valley, and they started towns such as Frankenmuth. In Ireland in the 1840s, there was a famine, which meant there was a serious shortage of food. This was caused when the potato crop failed. No potatoes for a year. Many Irish people left Ireland at this time and came to states like Michigan. Here they settled in Detroit and in an area of southwestern Michigan, which became known as the Irish Hills. Food shortages were also a problem in Poland in the 1860s. As a result, Poles began to come to Michigan looking for better jobs and farmland. They started towns like Posen in the northeastern part of the Lower Peninsula. Later, many Poles moved to the Detroit area to work in the car factories. In the 1840s, the Dutch government took control of the churches in Holland. This caused many Dutch people to leave their country in search of religious freedom. Many came to Michigan and settled in the western part of our state in cities like Grand Rapids. They also started a town called Holland. I think you've heard of that one. In the 1860s, Swedish people settled in the Upper Peninsula to work in mines and lumber camps. They felt the Upper Peninsula was a lot like their native Sweden. They lived in towns like Iron Mountain and Iron River. Finnish people and Italians also came to Michigan beginning in the 1860s. They came mainly to work in mines. Later, people from both these groups settled in the Detroit area to work in factories. So it sounds to me like a lot of people came for pull factors. And if you look at this list right down the middle with the magnet, jobs in the fur trade, jobs in the lumber mills, jobs in the mines, jobs in the factories, okay, and throw in farmland, jobs on farms, a better life, okay. So that was a good, that was a reason for a lot to come. Some was the freedom or the religious freedom. And these people, they came probably because many of them were pushed out, whether it was food shortages, government problems, lack of freedom, lack of religious freedom, the crops failed, they were running out of jobs, they were running out of farmland. So Michigan, being a newer state, had a lot of those things to offer. And even think of the auto industry. When that took off in the early 1900s, those factories just blew, and they could have, they were hiring and hiring. So there was some overlap as people were pushed out and left, and then something pulled them to Michigan. So now for the quiz, I've got some little mini stories about some people from other countries. See if you can decide if it was a push or a pull. Were they pushed out of their country? Were they pulled to Michigan? Or was it a combination of both?